welcome to the podcast. And today we know it can be a challenge to try to create marketing materials using AI and softwares and systems for our life. We're here with an expert, Rajat, and he's built a software called Ask Steve that helps save time, energy, and we're going to talk over different AI systems and softwares to make our life easier and more efficient. So, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Lucas.
Yeah. So as we dive into it, I really want to know a little bit about your expertise, your skills, and maybe a little bit about Ask Steve and how that came about.
Sure. Yeah. So my background is computer science, undergrad degree in computer science, grad school in computer science also, but with a focus on human-computer interaction, several years in between working as a software engineer. And then after grad school, I went to work as an interaction designer and engineer and business development person at a design and innovation firm called IDEO. And I was there for about 4 years, after which I started my first company. I was in the Silicon Valley, and so I spent 10 years at a venture-backed startup that I founded, and I kind of did all the roles there at the CEO, CPO, CTO, janitor, like I did everything.
Oh, wow.
And then when I finished that, I went to work for Google for 8 years as a product manager. And while at Google, I worked on 4 different teams. I started on the Nest team, working on consumer electronics devices. Then I went to the Maps team and worked on maps for real-world game developers, like Pokemon Go style games. Okay. And then I was on the augmented reality team, working on smartphone augmented reality as well as smart glasses. And then finally, in my last role there, I figured I'd try something completely different. And I went onto their internal HR technology team, the team that managed all the software for recruiting, performance management, learning and development, compensation for their 180,000 plus employees. So I left Google about a year ago and started this company called Ask Steve. And based on my prior experience doing venture-backed startup and having just been at a big company, I thought, let me try something completely different. And I'm a bootstrapped solopreneur now. One-person show, don't have to convince anybody of anything. I just get it done, and no venture funding. I'm just trying to make money as a standalone business.
Wow. I mean, honestly, to hear your journey and progress of all of the different projects, and I can imagine seeing that as the technology and software world is changing and being able to ride those waves and see what's going on.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to see the things that have been perpetually around the corner and have not yet hit, like XR, AR, and VR. Like they've had little pockets of success, but everybody thought these things were going to be the future, and they've never really hit major escape velocity. Things like blockchain and crypto kind of came and then are still around, but not nearly as much, and it's much more kind of in the speculative gambling arena effectively than it is in the how do we use this for all our software. But AI now seems to be kind of the freight train that's gonna either run us all over, or we're gonna catch it and do really well, or we're just gonna miss it completely and get left behind. And so that's why Ask Steve is an AI company, because I saw ChatGPT launched when I was in my last role at Google, and I saw the impact that it could have, and just really started thinking deeply about how should people be using this technology? And so when I left Google, I was like, I'm gonna do an AI company.
Yes. So when it comes to building the software, itself, and deciding what products do you have to help people, and how do you go about making decisions in terms of trying to find problems to solve or to help people? Because specifically, this podcast is mainly around people that are marketing managers, people that are in the marketing roles to try to do multiple tasks, multiple things. They're trying to figure out what are some ways that can make their life easier. How did you go about picking different products or things to include with Ask Steve? I'm curious.
Yeah, great question. So I had this point of view when I saw how AI was being deployed. So on the one hand, it's a chatbot in a separate window that you have to copy and paste. I mean, you're doing your work here in Salesforce or Workday or Gmail or LinkedIn or something, but all your help is over here, in a ChatGPT window or something. So you gotta copy it, paste it, do your thing, paste it back and forth and back and forth. And I'm like, well, that's clearly really inefficient. It's kind of you have this amazing intern at your disposal, but that intern's across the room. And every time you need help, you got to copy all the stuff off your computer, walk it over, hand it to the intern. Intern does something, you bring back. What you want is the intern sitting right next to you, looking at your screen, and it can just reach over and type on your keyboard. And so you just say hey, intern, summarize this for me. Hey, intern, rewrite this for me. You eliminate all that friction, and all of a sudden now, this intern becomes 100 times more valuable to you.
Yes, I can definitely attest to that just from how to say it. I'm one of those people that if you look at my computer, you see the hordes of tabs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it comes to a point when my computer, my Mac M1 starts slowing down. It's like, oh man, I'm gonna have to close out like so many tabs. And I've even used Ask Steve just from a side note on a lot of different things and trying to like communicate with it and pull different things. And that definitely keeps me like in the zone when trying
That's
to
right.
log in, which when you're doing multiple tasks, it can be hard to try to jump into each bucket. But when you can kind of have that transition, it definitely helps. I know people are probably going to be wondering from the aspect of, how Google integrates a lot of different like Gemini and AI software solutions. How do you see that playing out in terms of for the future? Because I know like Gemini will sometimes they'll take different things that are working really well and then they'll integrate it.
Yeah.
So and that's definitely kind of a in the software world always trying to stay relevant,
Right.
always in the thought. So
Yeah.
how
I
do you
mean,
position?
in tech, the question's always like, what if X does it? Right?
Yeah.
What if Google just does this? What if IBM just, what if Oracle? What if Anthropic? Or what if
Yeah,
OpenAI
starts
just
all
does
those.
this? Like, it's software is software. Like, anybody can write software. People can vibe code stuff now, right? Like, so that isn't the advantage. Having worked at Google, I have seen firsthand like how long it takes to get stuff through that machine. And it's, the machine is built to build things for, a billion users at scale with like no issues. And so it moves at a certain speed. So could Google do what I'm doing? Absolutely. They could release it. The nice thing I think about the thing that I'm doing is it's kind of agnostic, right? It doesn't matter if you want to use Gemini or OpenAI or Anthropic. It's kind of like the Switzerland UI layer on top of all these things that enables you to connect to any single one of those and use it. And it's built with a very strong point of view about how people should be using these tools. A lot of these developers, like Google, like Microsoft, they're building all these co-pilots into their products. And these co-pilots are great. It's better than like the copy-paste dance back and forth. But those co-pilots are siloed. They only work in their own little bucket. Like my Microsoft co-pilot thing only works in like Microsoft Word. It won't work on LinkedIn for me or won't work on these other sites. They're very rigid. They only do what the developers enable them to do. They can't be as flexible as you might want it to be to do like all the kinds of things you do in your day. And then there's just so many of them now. Like you have to learn the Microsoft one, you have to learn the other company one, and the other company one. And so now all of a sudden you have to learn like 10,000 copilots. And what you
Yes.
really, these are all like product copilots. What you really want is a personal copilot. The one
Yes.
copilot that spans kind of all the different software systems that you use. And that was kind of the intent behind Ask Steve.
Yes, I definitely see that there's kind of two things that it kind of made me think in terms of there's the world of data privacy in terms of, what we're inputting in for our AI systems.
Yeah.
Where is that being collected? And especially like when you're working with clients or sensitive data,
Yeah.
it can be a real challenge to work with AI that's in a safe model that, communicates without, sending that out to the world.
That's right.
Does Ask Steve have some ways on data privacy or is
Yeah.
there some things that help solve that problem?
Yeah, coming out of Google, I knew I was kind of building the thing I wanted when I was at Google, when I left there. And so I'm like, okay, well, if I was still at Google, would I allow all my data to transit through some unknown third party before it went to like the large language model? And the answer was like no. Like I think most companies are going to be that way. Like they don't want and if you look at so Ask Steve is a Chrome extension that integrates into the browser. And if you look at a lot of the popular AI Chrome extensions, they all do that. They all transit your stuff through their servers because they charge you on like a per query model. You pay, $100 a month and then you get 10,000 queries and you burn them down over the course of the month. And that's how they make their money. I decided to try and take a completely different approach, which was a bring your own API key model. And so an API key is basically a password that lets one piece of software talk to another piece of software. And you can get them for free from Google and Mistral, or you can use a paid one from OpenAI and Anthropic. Typically, it ends up being way cheaper than like their $20 a month plan. But you take that key, which you get from one of those services, you put it into Ask Steve, and then your data goes from your computer to that service and back, and never touches anything else in the middle. So as long as you trust that service that you're working with, or it can even go to an on-premise model if your company has deployed their own LLMs internally, in which case nothing ever leaves the boundaries of your company. So it's built from day one to be private and secure and suitable for enterprise deployment.
Interesting. Wow. I mean, that's honestly good to hear, specifically when it comes to how you how everything's being communicated and where's the data going and how it's
That's right.
being processed. Definitely I feel like as we progress into just software, there's this understanding of almost similar to like, it makes me think of like the recycling world is like the further we get along, the more important we see of like these renewable things, these things of like the bigger impact down the road
Yeah.
on what's going on with our data, recycling and technology kind of overlapping in different things.
That's right. And
Uh,
if you're dealing with any kind of sensitive or private data, you definitely don't want it going to somebody you don't know or to somebody that says that they will use your data for training their model, because then you have no idea how it's going to resurface.
Yes. So, what would you say when it comes to tools and tools specifically for the platform of Ask Steve?
Yeah.
What would be like the top three features or products that you have that would help marketing managers do their job more efficiently, better,
Sure.
and just quicker?
Yeah, so Ask Steve, I don't know if we've talked about like what exactly it
Yeah,
does
yeah.
yet, but it's a browser extension that you can download, install for free, and it gives you powerful one-click AI tools right in the browser that can see your screen. And so they can take action on that screen. So you could just, with the click of a button, say, summarize this web page, or extract all the emails from this web page, or rewrite this email and make it more friendly or more formal, like kind of all those things without actually having to copy and paste anything or bounce back and forth to another window. And so if you look at kind of the main philosophies or tenets of Ask Steve, one is available to you in the flow of work, so you don't have to bounce out in and out all the time. The second is can see what you're working on. And then the third is one-click access to these things. Like you don't have to mess with prompts every time and like remembering like what did I ask this thing to do? You write those prompts or those tools once with no code. It's all English, the same way that you would prompt ChatGPT. And then you build those with English, and then you have those tools available to use over and over again on any web page. And so it gives you this like this utility belt. I call it the AI Swiss Army knife of like whatever tool you might need. And I've got a library of over 100 that you can like really quickly install and customize to your own. And then the newest thing I've added is the ability to actually take the results of that AI transformation or whatever you're trying to do and write it directly into Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel or Notion or Airtable or Slack, which unlocks a whole new world of like if there's so many roles and jobs or times when you just want to get data off a web page or off a PDF or off of something and into some other structured format, whether it's leads for sales or candidates for recruiting, or I got a PDF full of all the events for my kid's robotics schedule and I just want to put them on a calendar. Like, do I want to do all that by hand? No. But now with like one click, Ask Steve can read that PDF, extract all those things, and write them all as calendar events. And so it makes it super powerful.
Yes. And so when it comes to, I'm thinking in terms of what would you say to, to people that are wanting to understand ways to use AI and software in terms of, is there ways for people to decide like if a software is right for them in terms of, well, things to consider, or what would you recommend to people that are really trying to pick out different things to make their life more efficient and better, whether it's Ask Steve or just other ways?
Sure. Right now, it's really all about experimentation. So there's this Wharton professor named Ethan Mollick, and he talks about, he has a number of really interesting concepts, but one of them is this idea of the jagged frontier. And the jagged frontier, the idea there is that like with most technologies, there's a very clear line saying the technology is good at this and is bad at this. And you can kind of intuit like, okay, you know, the McDonald's self-ordering system is really good at these, but really bad at these. But with AI, that line is like really crazy. You have no idea because it's like, it's incredibly good at summarizing and rewriting or extracting the key highlights out of like a 50-page, very technical PDF, but it can't tell you how many R's are in the word strawberry, right? Like that line is like, it's so, and so the only way to understand that line and to get a good intuitive sense of that line is to just start using these tools. And everybody, they're all using kind of similar models underneath, but then everybody's building different UI layers on top or application layers. And I think that's the part where you just got to like try different tools and see like what are the ones that fit into your workflow or that fit into your kind of your mindset the best in terms of the ways that you interact with it and the ways it can help you streamline your workflows.
Yes. Is there anything specifically? I know when you started to build out different products to make, people's lives easier, or specifically, is there some ways that you broke down making decisions for? I'm just trying to think for people that are picking out different things. Is there any specific like process, or do you just think more in terms of, Okay, well, I'm just thinking of what specifically do I want to have, or to try, essentially trying to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Is there some ways that you broke those down?
Yeah, there were a couple of ways. So the first initial set of tools in Ask Steve were basically like things I wanted, and then just going out and looking at like what were frequently used prompts, like looking at people's prompt libraries. Like Anthropic had one, other people had one. I figured, okay, if they're putting them in their prompt libraries, they're probably things that are like a lot of people want to do. But then after that, going to specific ICPs, the ideal customer profiles. And so looking at specific roles, so talent acquisition and talent sourcing, sales development representatives, marketing and PR. What is it that these people are doing that's a very kind of repetitive task, or one that's involves a lot of text or data manipulation that could be streamlined with AI, and then building a set of tools around those.
Yes, I can definitely see in terms of when you said repetitive tasks, that made me think in terms of oftentimes the things that we're spending, the repetition things in our life are sometimes things that we can streamline or would like to streamline. Like there's certain things of like, oh man, I know I have to drive to work or go here. It's like that's a process that goes about, but I can't necessarily like automate that unless I had like a Tesla car, to drive me, or something like the subway or something like that.
Yeah.
So it definitely makes me think in terms of going from the perception of what are the things that are repeatable or repetible, I don't know if that's the right word, and then trying to find solutions to then streamline that.
Yeah, and a lot of those things, like we get habituated to them very fast. Right? Like, oh, I know I have to do X, Y, and Z, and you just kind of like mindlessly do this stuff over and over and over again, and you just get used to having to do it. And then it's always fun to have a new capability come into your life, a new tool set that all of a sudden you can like look at everything with fresh eyes and say like, oh, I'm manually every time I want to capture somebody's information from LinkedIn, I'm like copying the name to the name column and the role column, whatever. Now with just one click, I can just like boom, like AI can figure out what part is what and like write it into the right spreadsheet, and like I just saved myself like 10 minutes of manual copying and pasting on every single one of these things.
Yes, I would definitely say finding, because there's certain unique roles that we need to have. There's the things that we do repetitively, and then there's the certain things of like where the boss says like, oh, we need to do this project or have this, and then we're trying to like, okay, well, how do I do that? And then if it's a repeatable task,
Yeah.
then to try to figure out ways to, if you're taking like LinkedIn profiles or something like that where you have to collect multiple ones.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that adding value and helping people for sure.
Yeah. And then ideally we could all help each other too, right?
Yeah.
Like you make a tool that does X, Y, or Z, and you've like refined it and used it over time and made it better and better, and then you just share it with your friends and you share it with your colleagues, and then they share it, and like all of a sudden, like that's hard with prompts right now. Like we all have our own like internal little prompt libraries that we use like in a Word doc somewhere or a Google Doc, and it's really hard to just kind of share that stuff. But now with stuff like Ask Steve, you can basically like make a tool, export it, send it to your colleagues. They can import it, use it, refine it, and like it just makes it like this sharing of capabilities. I think makes all of us better. It's like the rising tide.
Yes. Well, I didn't realize that there was. So what you're saying is that when people build something and Ask Steve as far as a tool, like a prompt that it builds it out, then they can then share it with other people that have Ask Steve as well.
Yes.
Okay. Can that model build upon the data that was been provided, that was built on the Ask Steve model originally, like when you share it, or is it just the prompts itself?
It's just the prompts and how they should work. Yes.
Okay. Wow. That's really, I really think that's that's an intuitive way of thinking about things in terms of a team aspect, because specifically sometimes the people that are in the marketing world, they kind of are the frontiers of testing certain things out, and then if it works, then like, okay, well then trying to integrate it with like other systems, with people trying it out can definitely be, that's really neat to have to share that. So in the software world, with you being on kind of the both sides of, as being an owner of Ask Steve and then building with Google and things like that, where are you seeing just the overall technology head towards, whether it's AI, the direction, new things coming about, any things that people should be, thinking about or considering just as this technology is progressing?
Yeah, it was really interesting in the early days how everybody was criticizing the applications that were being built at the application layer. Everybody's like, oh, all the value is in the models, the Geminis and the ChatGPTs and whatever, and everybody else is like just the the denigrating term was like a thin layer or a thin wrapper on top of that model, right? And then more recently, the pendulum has gone completely the other way as people are realizing that the models are effectively, I mean, for most intensive purposes, kind of all the same, right? All the frontier models. And so you go Gemini, you go Claude, you go OpenAI, like they're all basically kind of the same. And so there's zero switching costs between these things. And so all the value then should be in the layer above in the like, how are users actually getting the value out of those models, and whether it's in a certain a specific job type or a role like marketing or like legal or sales or something, or just the user interface that all of a sudden makes this stuff much easier to use. And so I think we're going to start seeing a lot more innovation in the application layer now, now that more and more people are realizing this, which should be super exciting because like chatbots should not be the end state for how we're using this stuff. Like I always thought chatbots were awful before AI hit, right? Like they're the kind of the least efficient way to get something done. Like yes, conversation is nice, but like when I want to find something, it's like much easier just to search for something rather than say, "Can you get me?" like whatever, right?
Yes.
And I still think chatbots are like a bad UI, and that there's much better. There's a lot of room for innovation and how people can get tasks accomplished with AI by their side.
Yes, I definitely think in two terms of one, definitely with working on with chatbots in terms of I had to have it where I was reselling one of my camera equipments and I went online and I needed to change the order. I was like just a small little minute thing. I was taking one order out and placing it in, and I asked the AI, "Hey, can we swap this out?" And it took me forever to try to figure out like, okay, can it do it? Can it not do it? And it couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And then I finally had to, okay, speak to a representative. I'm like, okay, now I'm back to,
Yeah.
square one, and I'm gonna have to wait, until they respond to my email.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like those things in technology that are getting better, but then there's still some balance of, okay, I would love to see another layer of customer support or service, like some ways that make our life, better.
Yeah. Yeah. And like these chatbots suffer from like the blank page problem or the blank prompt problem, right? Like if you just have an open text box and it says like type anything, you don't know what the thing can do. You don't even know. Like, can it do X? Can it do? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, I worked on the Google Nest Hub at Google, which was one of these like smart speakers, but it had a screen, kind of like the Google Home or the Alexa.
Yes.
And those suffered a very similar problem. Like, you don't know what you can ask this thing. Can it play music? I don't know. I can try asking. Can it set me a timer? Can it control my whatever? Like, you don't know because like that interface is all invisible. It's just gone. And so people don't know what they can do with these things. And so then they just like fall back on the things that they do know. Like they basically ask questions, start and stop music, and do timers and alarms. And that's it. And then there's like this whole iceberg of functionality underneath that like nobody ever uses. And it's the same with like kind of chatbots and AI, which is why like user interfaces that kind of show you, like Netflix doesn't give you a chatbot. Netflix shows you like rows and rows and like helps you flip through them, and like it makes it super clear what this thing does. And so I think there's a ton of opportunity in that space.
Yes, I definitely agree on that side. It makes me think in terms of the further we get down the software and technology world, the more customizable that I want it for myself.
Yeah.
I know in terms of, honestly, if I'm even thought of the idea of if there's some way to collect all of the words or text, that I speak in a day, and then to help me in terms of throughout my life, throughout my day, email, and like everything, if you get something that's collecting so much data, then how can you use it to help, whether it's software or information?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how much data can we pull, and then designing something.
There are companies that are creating like pendants that you can wear during the day that will record everything.
Yes, I've heard a couple of those for like the conversations.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if it gets to the point where we can start to then have it where it's systemized, like sends out emails and starts to do things without. I would love to see like in the software world.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just all. I feel like in the space of technology, I feel like a lot of people have like ideas to do this and this and that. It just gets a little I would say overwhelming. Trying to figure out which ones.
People are also making pendants that can be your friends too, by the way.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I can't remember the name of the one, but it was like it's always listening to you, and then it interacts back with you through your phone, through like notifications and stuff.
Oh, interesting.
And it seemed crazy.
Oh man, that's yes. Honestly, that seems a little Yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe if we progress like 10 years and start to get, or 5 years, I know it's capable. I'm just thinking in terms of there's some level of like creepiness that comes with, the technology, which, I feel like there's a lot going on that's just from the privacy side, it's being collected already.
Yeah,
But yes. So I just want to ask a couple more rapid fire
sure.
questions when it gets into it. Let's do, we'll start off with, so when it comes to software technology, what are you seeing being the next thing in terms of revolutionary that's coming up in the next year or so?
Revolutionary software. I mean, people have been talking a lot about vibe coding, and that's one point of view on this world. But I think the point of view that I find super interesting is this notion of like transient or disposable software. So I need a mortgage calculator to help me like figure out whatever. And like, could I go build something in Sheets or Excel or whatever? Yes, but I gotta like know a bunch to
Hmm.
do that. Like, I don't know how
Yeah.
to use Sheets or Excel that
Uh-huh.
well. But can I just go like to one of these vibe coding systems like Replit or V0 or
Hmm.
Lovable or Bolt and just say like, build me a mortgage calculator. Okay, I want it to do X, Y, and Z. Okay, make the button. And now I've got this piece of software that I can use to accomplish my task. And then when I'm done with it, it just goes away,
Mm.
right? And it's like this idea of like disposable software that I
Oh,
can just
interesting.
build these things as I need them for whatever. Like in marketing, if I need help editing something or writing
Mhm.
something or give me some ideas for a slide or whatever, I can do prompts and things like that. Or I could just build myself a little tool that only I use, like,
Mhm.
or maybe I share with my friends and then we're using it. And as soon as we can come up with a better idea, we throw this one away and we make a better one, right? It's like,
Mm.
it's software software used to take, you needed experts to build software and it took time and money. And therefore, you only did it if you were sure, right?
Mm.
But now you don't have to be sure. Now you don't have to be anything. You can just like, bam, 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 bam. Okay, here it
Mhm.
is. Like, let's go. And so
Yes.
that cost to create software has come down like so much that all of a sudden it unlocks this whole new world of opportunity for how to use it.
Yes, that makes me think of the software Pickaxe. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No.
I may butcher the concept, but the concept is you just type in specifically what you want to build in terms of like a form or what it to create some form of like chatbot,
Yeah.
and it essentially will create it so that it once you input of hey I want to detail out like the top 10 ways to interview people, it'll essentially create that and then create it focused around how would I say it? Its own landing page and
Okay.
everything that's for it. So it's kind of a quick build response.
Very cool.
So when it comes for the final question to ask, what would you say to marketing managers in terms of some things that would make their life better or perspective to think about software?
Yeah, I think in this time, it really is use the tools, try the tools. I can't remember, there's like the whole 10,000 hours to become an expert. I don't know that that's right, but I think, not in this case anyway, but Ethan Mollick does talk about that Wharton professor about how like 10 hours, spend 10 hours using some of these tools to give you an innate sense of what they're good at and what they're bad at, and to see what kind of capabilities of yours it unlocks. And so don't like there's a lot of people and roles that are afraid of being replaced by AI right now, and it's a totally valid concern, right? Like every other day you're reading articles about how like software engineers are about to be displaced. I spend all my day software engineering right now, right? Like, am I going to be displaced? I don't know. But at the same time, there are a lot of people like myself focused on augmentation, like not replacement, right? I don't want to replace recruiters, salespeople, marketing people, engineers. I want to augment them and make them like 10x better. And so find those tools uh, that can optimize your workflows to make you 10x better by either making things way more efficient or by amplifying your abilities so that you can create things that you couldn't before. And I think there's a wealth of opportunity to do that right now.
Mm. Oh, I love everything that you said as far as because there's a lot of fear behind
Yeah.
technology and software and where people fit in that bridge between innovation and relevance.
Yeah.
And that balance between how to position yourself to be an expert to also to be cutting edge.
Yeah, that's right. I was just at a conference of a number of talent acquisition sourcers, and the recurring theme was, AI will not replace us. There are unique intangibles that we provide, but we have to learn how to use these tools to do our jobs better, because otherwise, they could try to replace us, right? Like we have to be better than that.
Yes. Well, honestly, I really appreciate you sharing about your history, how Ask Steve came about, and the features and ways that you're helping people's lives make it more efficient and better. So I really appreciate you sharing. So where can people find you at?
Sure. Yeah. People can find me on LinkedIn. Whatever. LinkedIn.com/in/Rajat Rocks is the URL, or they can find Ask Steve at asksteve.to, and you can download and install it for free.
Perfect. Well, is there anything coming up from Ask Steve's perspective? Any new products? Anything's coming up real quick?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things on the roadmap that I'm looking at. Unclear whether they will work or not. The number one is right now to create Ask Steve tools, you type in your prompt in English, but you have to put in like things like variables and using a certain format. And that can be confusing for various people. So I'm trying to see if I can use like AI to build the tools themselves. So you just type in natural language, oh, I want something that takes this page and parses out all the email addresses and writes them into a Google Sheet for me. And then bam, it just makes the tool for you that you can then run with one click.
Oh, I would really like to see that. So I'm already using Ask Steve and on a regular basis. Have had really enjoyed using it. So I'll definitely let me know when that comes out.
I will.
I'll give it a shot.
Perfect.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.